28 Years Later's sequel, which is titled The Bone Temple, is a movie that's already on the cards. It's been filmed, and funnily enough, it's set to be released 28 weeks after the first movie in this new trilogy. With the ending of the first movie being a little bit controversial and divisive, and not quite living up to the hype of what everybody expected, and I'd say even wanted this film to be. I feel like it's all on this second movie to save the series already, which is a tall order. So with that, I thought I'd take a look at all that's out there about the new movie, and also give my theories and predictions on what I think will happen. So let's get into it. Here is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, Everything We Know. The characters and cast. When it comes to the returning cast, new cast members, the writer and the director of this new movie, there are actually a few new additions. As the movie was filmed back to back, there are some characters that featured in the first that will definitely be making a return. For example, as this story is predominantly following the character Spike and his quest to explore more of what the world is like outside of Holy Island, Alfie Williams is set to return and will be at the heart of it again. As well as that, Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to be reprising his role as Jamie, as it's said that he's going to be leaving the island in search of his son. Jack O'Connell will also be returning and taking more of a lead role in this film, rather than the brief appearance at the end where he'll be Sir Jimmy Crystal, the cult leader that seems to have turned against religion, something that his father always followed. There'll also be Emma Laird as Jemima, who's a member of his cult. Maura Bird will be Jimmy Jones, another cult member, and it's also said that Ralph Fiennes will be back as Dr. Kelson. Considering that the movie is called The Bone Temple and he had a temple of bones where he was staying, one would imagine that he's going to be a leading figure too. Chai Lewis Parry will also be returning as Samson, the alpha infected that Dr. Kelson kept a close eye on in the first movie. And then, most importantly, it's said that Cillian Murphy will be reprising his role as Jim from 28 Days Later, the first movie in the franchise that was released in 2002. The last we saw of Jim, he was rescued by a helicopter along with Selena and Hannah, and we don't know what else the character has got up to since then. So it seems like he's going to have managed to survive the rage virus, unless he's going to be back as some kind of infected. When it comes to who's going to be directing this movie, it's not actually going to be Danny Boyle, who directed 28 Days Later and also 28 Years Later. This is a bold move because 28 Weeks wasn't deemed to be as good as the original, and one of the main changes was the direction. However, Nia DaCosta is going to be leading the way with this new one. Danny Boyle openly said that he didn't do the sequel due to timing constraints with the back-to-back nature, so he decided to get DaCosta in for that very reason. He also said that he was pleased because having her involved was something that diversified the creative team behind the trilogy. As he said himself, a criticism of his is that the team is a bit of a boys' club. However, he has said that if the third movie does get the green light and if it gets the financial backing, then he'd return to direct it. When it comes to the writer of the movie, that's gonna stay the same as 28 Days Later and 28 Years Later, Alex Garland, probably the person that I prefer most in the team. The release date. When it comes to the release date of this movie, the good news is it's already been given the green light and it's actually already been filmed, which means that it's miles ahead when compared to usual. The second movie was filmed back to back with the first due to timing constraints on the availability of the actors, and also for the sake of financial reasons with it too. So the film wrapped up a long while ago and it already has a release date in the diary. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple is set to hit the screens in early January, around the 16th of January 2026, which isn't that long to wait at all in the modern day for a sequel. So it's interesting that they decided to release it so soon and not make us wait a little while longer. The only thing that's comparable to that in recent times is probably Squid Game, as they took a similar approach in waiting around 6 months between Season 2 and Season 3. Considering this is being positioned as a trilogy, the same fate for the second movie can't be applied to the third movie, as that movie hasn't been confirmed to definitely be going ahead. Danny Boyle has been seen saying that he's hoping that the return of Cillian Murphy's character will be enough to get the third film financed. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but I feel like the movie will have to be a lot stronger than this first one if the third movie is going to be given the green light. Already, I hope that it does go ahead, because I hate the fact that we live in a world where sequels get promised or movies and TV series get created with more in mind, but they ultimately just end up getting cut short. So if it's left on a massive cliffhanger, I'll be out there praying for the green light. Plus, if the third movie is when Cillian Murphy's Jim is going to be properly featured, I feel all of us will definitely want to see that. The plot and story of the sequel. When it comes to the story, there are genuinely so many different directions that it could go in. First off, with it being titled The Bone Temple, the first presumption would be that Dr. Kelsner's memento mori would be at the heart of it, which it could be. However, I actually think it's going to have something to do with Sir Jimmy Crystal instead. Jimmy came from a religious background as his father was a priest, placed in the church opposite his home as we saw during the opening scene of 28 Years Later. So even though Jimmy might not be a religious man in the traditional sense, I feel like with him having his crucifix and wearing it upside down, it means that he's going to view himself as this messiah and cult-like figure that the rest of his people will follow. I think Jimmy Crystal will have the Bone Temple, and it could be where his cult operates from. The cults seem to take pride in the way that they kill the infected, but there's nothing to say that Jimmy doesn't operate with that violent front towards people that don't necessarily follow his beliefs or are willing to follow his ways. There were signs of what he could be like when there was that infected that was left hanging upside down in the barn house. This was the cult's handiwork. It seemed like maybe this person was a traitor, and the cult left them there hanging as prey so that when the infected got close, they then took a bite out of him and turned him infected. So it's going to be interesting to see Spike being exposed to these new kind of ways, and then when his father goes after him, he could potentially get met with an unrecognizable figure which will be his son. What Spike being a part of this cult will show him is a different side to the way that people act. He's only ever been around community, togetherness and caring, and the evil has been the infected. Whereas the cults seem like they take what they want when they want and however they want. They're a kill or be killed mindset. So I feel this movie will fix one of the biggest issues compared to the first movie, which is making humans the villain again and showing a side to humanity that's evil. I actually think that we're going to get Jamie looking for help from Dr. Kelson, and the both of them might go off together with the hopes of finding his son. I imagine Jamie would go to the doctor that he fears because Spike mentioned about his mother in the letter, so that will be where they'll reunite. I also imagine we'll have Jamie walking through this world that he hasn't been to for decades, and flashbacks from his previous life might start to appear. What that then leaves us with is the question around how Cillian Murphy's character will enter the story. His involvement is being kept a massive secret, however he was spotted on set during the filming process, so it's safe to say that he will definitely be in it. It very much seems like his character will be front and center of the third movie. So I reckon it could follow suit to how Jack O'Connell's character made an appearance in 28 Years Later, in just saving it for the end and then it'll develop forward in the next installment. I don't actually mind if that's the case, because it feels like there's going to be plenty going on with Spike being corrupted and his father going out searching for him. Unfortunately for now, that's all that seems to be known about the Bone Temple, but I'm sure more information will be released as we get ever closer to the release date in Jan next year. What I will say is that the trailer for 28 Years Later was released months in advance to build up hype, so I reckon we won't actually have to wait that long until we get our first glimpse of it. So, there you have it, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, Everything We Know. If you want to see a full breakdown of the movie, the new variations of the infected explained, and also what I thought was wrong with 28 Years Later, then check the videos below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.